Well, hi there. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at Extra Practice Module 19, which is about equilibrium. And so we're going to put aggregate demand and aggregate supply together. So if you haven't watched the stuff from 7.2 about equilibrium, where we put the graphs together and do all that stuff, you need to watch it before you do this. Number one, describe the short run effects of each of the following shocks on the aggregate price level and on aggregate output. So shocks, just so you know, is a fancy word that just means like changes. So if you see those, that's what it means. It just means a shift, right? So we like to call them a shock because it's unexpected. Check your understanding. Number one, A. The government sharply increases the minimum wage, raising the wages of many workers. So this is a input cost, right? And I'm going to write out more than you probably need here. So SRAS goes down. And now what it's actually asking is what happens to price level and output. Now, you could do a little graph off to the side, but if you know that supply is decreasing, you should know by this point that price levels would go up and the quantity of output would go down, right? And you can actually just say, y decreases if you want, that's fine. So you could actually write just like y down. That means output goes down. So because SRAS is decreasing, the price level is going to go up and the output's going to go down. This is actually what we call stagflation. Stagflation. It's a recession caused by basically SRAS going down. Now, 2B says solar energy firms launch a major program of investment spending. Well, that's just investment spending going up. So we know aggregate demand goes up. So we'd say if demand's going up, then the price level is going to rise and output is also going to rise. So they're both going to go up, right? C says Congress raises taxes and cuts spending. So that's a government policy that's going to expand, right? So we could say that G is going up, and that's because G is going down. It's not going to expand. I can't read. They're cutting spending, so G goes down. Plus, consumption spending is going to go down because the taxes are higher. So we'd say aggregate demand, therefore, pretty clearly decreases. So price level goes down and output goes down. All right, now part D, severe weather destroys crops around the world. And you think about what that's going to do, right? That's a little weird to consider, like, how's something like climate change going to affect us? Well, grain, wheat, corn, those are inputs for lots of products. And there's your key word, right? Inputs. And if they're destroyed, then we know that there's going to be a shortage of those things. So input prices will be higher. So we'd say input costs go up. So therefore, SRAS goes down, and therefore, price levels go up and output goes down. So that's going to be the same as part A as well. Number 2 says a rise in productivity increases potential output. So that's kind of a permanent increase in LRAS. But some worry that the demand will be insufficient even in the long run. How would you respond? I would say that if output is rising due to capacity rising, we'd say therefore the aggregate demand still exists for that output, right? For the output that we have, it just will be decreased price levels. So kind of the way to think about this is actually with the graph, and I was kind of resisting doing this, but you have GDPR, price level, and this is basically saying, imagine in the long run, right? And I'm just going to draw the long run here with an aggregate demand curve. And it's saying LRAS shifts to the right because it's a permanent increase, right? So, well, there's not going to be enough demand. Yes, there is. It's just that in the long run, the price levels will be lower. Like YF moved over to YF2, and now the economy can produce more stuff, and it happens to be at a lower price level. It's like everything you want, right? All right, so now let's take a look at multiple choice number 1. I'm going to move this up just a little bit here. These are great multiple choice questions, by the way. You're going to see these on your quiz for sure. Number 1, which of the following causes negative supply shock? So just remember, supply shock just means a change, right? So the aggregate supply decreases. A technological advance? No, that's going to be increasing because it increases productivity. Increasing productivity? No, increasing productivity, right? An increase in oil prices? That's input costs. So we would say 3, only C. Number 2. Which of the following causes positive demand shock? There's that crazy shock word again. Increase in aggregate demand. An increase in wealth. That's going to affect consumer feelings about how the economy is doing. So then consumption will rise. So A is the right answer. Let's look at the others though. B, pessimistic consumers. No, that would decrease. Decrease in government spending. Again, decrease aggregate demand. Increase in taxes. That would affect consumption and decrease it. So that's not right. Increase in the existing stock of capital. That's going to cause. That's that weird idea from aggregate demand where like if there's a whole lot of something that the businesses have already spent money on the machinery. So if there's an increase in the amount of machinery that they've already bought, then they're probably not going to buy as much like in the next 6 months. And so that would actually cause a decrease in investment spending. So E is a wonky workaround one, but A is the right answer anyway. So, all right, number 3, during stagflation, what happens to price level and real GDP? Well, actually, we talked about that right up here. So price levels go up and output goes down. All right, so which one does that correspond to? Price levels go up, that's C and D, and output goes down, so that's D. Correct answer, D. Number 4, which of the following statements is true if the economy is at P1, Y1? Well, they're in a recession, we can tell that. The level of output, aggregate output, equals potential. No, it doesn't, because potential is LRAS, so they're not the same. It is in short run macroeconomic equilibrium. Yeah, sure, it's in an equilibrium because it's at point E, but it's in a short run one. So this is the difference between a short run and a long run equilibrium. Long run equilibrium means that you're at equilibrium on the LRAS. Normally, the lingo is that if you're in at equilibrium, you're on the LRAS. This is kind of a wackadoo way of basically saying you're at a short run point where AD and AS align with each other. Of course, if all 3 lines cross, then you're in the long run equilibrium. So the correct answer is 2 only, B. Number 5, the economy above is in a recession. I already said that. That's B. And D, supply, and E, demand gap, those are made up. We don't know what that is. Now let's take a look at the second free response here. Number 2. Draw a correctly labeled graph of aggregate demand, aggregate supply, and economy in long-run equilibrium. Well, that's perfect. That's actually the connection to that question we were just talking about that some of you might have been like, burr, burr. So you've got Y, price level, LRAS, and then the long run would be exactly, oh, that was bad. I missed. So I'm going to show you the trick, right? You just go, wee, and you draw a really big dot. No, that's seriously, that's the advice. So on the AP test, if your lines don't line up, just draw a big dot, and it works. So price level, we'll say PL1, and we're at Y1. That way we kind of know. All right, hopefully that helped you. See you next time.